I got a gavel. I'm going to use it. It's like- Oh, okay. We're not going to go there. All right. Welcome to our Public Safety Committee meeting. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We have the full council here today, as well as city council staff, our attorney, various members of the Mobile Police Department and Public Safety. Is Joshua going to be here? You hiding back there. Okay. So we have some speakers who we invited to come today. Mr. Gatewood. So, yeah, why? Do we have room? Well, if they're going to speak, yes, but why don't we?
Just sit here. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
We're all at the same table.
Madam Chairwoman, I want to let you know that I'm going to be leaving in 25 or 30 minutes or so.
That is the other housekeeping. We need to keep this to a hard hour today because there are those of us who have to be somewhere out west. So if we can get Josh, Mr. Gatewood, and Curtis, if y'all can come join us at the table, that would be great. As y'all all know, we are following up from the January 13th Peace Forum that we had here at Government Plaza, which was really a starting point. Thanks, guys. And we can all kind of scoot down a little bit too. Looking at implementing, putting a plan together, creating a plan, and then implementing a plan to really make a dent in the gun violence and youth violence that we see in our city. There are a lot of programs out there. We heard from a lot of speakers who have a lot of good ideas, who have some successes under their belt. But two of these programs that we heard about January 13th were the two that we wanted to hear more about in more detail, possibly as a way to, contribute more if that is what we decide we need to do going forward or how we're going to handle it. But first, we just need more details on what truly are the successes, show us the statistics, how you measure it, what you're really seeing, because everybody's got a good idea. Everybody's got a program, and we can't fund everything. Throwing 5,000 and 10,000 at a multitude of things may not be the best route to go. But we need to hear from people who are working these programs, and then we need to try to make a decision on what our best path forward is. And I know we want to put a plan together that we can all agree on, working with our partners. We as the government cannot do everything, but we as a government can work together with our partners to do a better job. So, Corey, do you want to, because Councilman Penn hosted the meeting couple of weeks ago. So we are really working with him to follow through on all of this if you want to start out.
Thank you, Vice President Gregory. That's the whole point. You kind of put it out there that's the goal. We have a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of great things, but we got to create a synergy. I know Joshua talked about a program in Baltimore that kind of sparked our interest. And what they're doing. So today I want to hear about that program, see some information about what changes is taking place. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that the Mobile County school system was involved in this because, of course, all the kids attend the school system here. And so whatever we're doing, we want to make sure we create that partnership and make sure the school system is aware. And maybe it's some programs you all already implemented, but how can we work together to make that happen? So that's the reason why we wanted to have this meeting.
Okay. Joel?
Just one thing. I think one of the questions is whether the bulk of the bulk of the violence that is being perpetrated by this cohort between, what is it, 16 and 24, something
15
like
and
that,
25,
15 and
yeah.
25. Are they really in school? Are they full-time students? Are they not full-time students? Because my speculation would be that the bulk of them are not full-time students. And so that's just a fact I'd be interested in hearing.
That's a great point, Joe, Councilman Dave. But one of the things too, we have to understand that at one point they were in school, and the whole point is prevention before it happens. Yeah, that's it. Keep them. Yeah, that's it. So I think that's the whole reason why we're having that discussion is because they were in school, but we know that of course when those type of activities take place, of course at the age they tend to maybe drop out. But our goal is to prevent these things from taking place.
Okay, anybody else before we start with our speakers?
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on, I'm sorry, Vice President, on Councilman Joe. I mean, to add on to that, because, you know, basically when Councilman Penn had called a meeting, you know, we had an incident, or there was an incident in our area on I-65, and dealing with this 15-year-old, or, you know, and then we had another one, you know, last week with this 9-year-old. But what actually draws them to really to do that? I mean, what else could, you know, and I agree with the Vice President, you know, it's going to take more than just let the officials, but what else can be done? You know, that's what I would like to hear today. You know, what will stop them from, you know, shooting? What else can be done? I mean, just to try to get rid of this, you know, that's what I would like to hear today.
If I can start first, that's okay. I would say this.
Okay.
Use the mic.
Yeah, let's get you on the mic.
Councilman Small, you said, what can we do to stop it? Only God can stop it. Let me just say that just flat out. Okay. Taking that into consideration, what can we do to help mitigate what we're seeing? Concentrating on prevention and intervention strategies, identifying root causes, understanding the impact of trauma, and understanding the brain development of youth. Okay, there's a reason why God gave us parents, because when we were youth, we were boneheads. I'm not trying to be funny about it, but the reality is this: we have parents for a reason. We can't forget that the common denominator in all this are parents. That's the common denominator. So if we're trying to solve an equation without that, then we're going to miss it every time. When we consider the fact that we have to make parents accountable, and we have to come up with solutions that may already exist in pre-existing laws and policies, we need to look at those policies and those laws that we have in place now and figure out what can we do to leverage accountability of parents. But in the meantime, we also have to study root causes. We have to lean heavily on our academic partners in psychology to understand brain development of youth, because they don't think the way we do. They're emotional. Their responses are oftentimes an emotional response to very rational comments that you may make because their frontal lobe is still being developed. It doesn't fully develop until around age 25. And that's if drugs and alcohol have not played into the development of that frontal lobe. So this is not stuff that we get trained in the academy for in law enforcement. The police response will always be just that, a response, because we cannot do it outside of relationships with others in the community. Public health, education, NGOs that we have in our city that are working, doing their thing, trying to figure out how to address these issues. But I will tell you, absent of God, we have to look at the science of behavior, and we have to look at the accountability of parents and say, what can we do? What can we leverage that's already in place within our laws and policies that we have to address parental accountability? And there are some things that I've already looked at that may help or may not help. I hesitate to share all that right now because I don't have all the information that I need to share with you to give you a full response. But I will say that I think a lot of folks are diligently working, trying to come up with ways to address this issue. But we cannot do this without parental accountability.
Vice President.
Yes, sir.
I thank you, Commander Graves, for responding. And I know we kind of on a time crunch. And I agree. You made a valid point dealing with that. You said that the police department wasn't trained, and it was more trained for responding for these type of issues. Mr. Jones, you when at the meeting we kind of talked about some things that other cities are doing. Do you have that information for us?
Yes, I do. I have it all in a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh,
If y'all want to see
Were you going to do that today, or
And if that's,
Yeah, I
Do
would
we-
like to. Yeah, get
how
that.
long, how long is that?
I can, 10, 15 minutes is that.
Do y'all want to do that? 'Cause
Yes.
That was one of the things that okay.
If we're doing that, can I add something to this also?
Yeah.
I want to share with you guys something. We talked earlier about data, okay, evidence to support strategy. This is a copy of a manuscript for the Second Chance or Else program that we started in 2015 here. Because again, going back to root causes and accountability, these are parents that we actually put in this program. These folks who were low-level drug offenders. And what we've done is we had a third party that assessed this program for us at the University of South Alabama. This is about to become a published manuscript on our findings. I said on the 13th that we have cumulatively a 73.7% success rate of participants who participated in the SCORE program to still be out and about, and they've not committed new offenses relative to drug offenses or any other serious crime against anyone in the city of Mobile or in the county. So we're proud of that number because it shows what can happen when you really come up with a strategy that allows you to apply empathy and understanding while at the same time accountability to people.
Have you got those? Have you got copies of that we can?
I can give you a copy of this.
Hey,
Yeah,
can we get that and go ahead and make some copies? And that way we can take those with us today, if it's okay to.
That's fine. That's fine. We are pending the acceptance from the Journal of Community Psychology, but they've already said that they have accepted it and they'll be publishing this data.
I know you want to speak, but I know Ben's got to leave. Can you?
This is just a quick question. Couple questions. And it may be in that manuscript. The answer's already there. So when, say, these offenders here recently committed these acts, was there an evaluation done of the parents? So do we have record of, what the parents, what the household was like, all that sort of stuff?
Those are things that we have not done, but those are things that I have discussed with my team about basically looking at, first of all, these folks that we have identified that have committed violent offenses in our city, finding out from our education partners if they can share that information, whether or not if these individuals graduated from high school. Okay, that's important. Another important factor is to determine whether or not their parent graduated from high school. All those things play a vital role in trying to figure out or determine what are some of the root causes that are affecting our city in such a way that is not unique to the city of Mobile, that every other city in our great land are dealing with the same issues, some more serious than ours. But a death is a death. Okay, when we have one, we all have a knee-jerk reaction to it. But I will say, no matter what practices we put in place, we will still have deaths. And I think that what we have to do is figure out a strategy ultimately of accountability with parents, but also figuring out how do we create a greater collaboration among partners in our city that have a mission to public health and education, because those are things that can help us mitigate through education what we're currently seeing right now in our city.
Okay.
I just want to that same point very quickly.
Okay.
If say a 16-year-old shoots into an unoccupied building or whatever, commits a violent crime, would the police department, would they interview the parents under every circumstance, or only if they were, say, pertinent to their investigation and figuring out who, the facts of it? And if it's not, would it be helpful to establish that policy to if there is a minor that has committed a violent offense, make it a policy in the police department that they will ask these questions of those parents under every circumstance. And then we can consolidate that data and maybe find some common factors.
I would want to speak on whether or not we want to create policy for the police department to do any of that. I would say this, I would say that, I mean, that would be a fair response, right? But I would say
Procedure.
this, I would say that what we do, what I would like to see us do from an educational standpoint, if we're trying to find root causes, for us to have the Office of Public Safety look into those challenges or those situations or those determinants to see whether or not do they apply to the situation at hand.
What I would suggest is, since we're going to get a copy of your document, that way we can all take a look at it and read it and come back with some other follow-up questions like what Ben has. And there will probably be more that we can get back with you on, because those follow-up questions then might result in suggestions as to part of what our plan will be, what our ultimate plan will be.
I would just say that when you do get a copy of it, just keep it to yourself, because we're still waiting for the confirmation of publication, but we are certain that it will be published.
Okay, and William?
I mean, I think you just made the point. I think we're a little bit too deep into the weeds on this right now. You guys are you're discussing parts of a program that we haven't even decided on which way we're going to go yet. There's so many different agencies that have given us vital information of what we can have within the program, but we have yet to set the program yet, Officer Graves. Your program is great. The program that Jim Barber came up with about 8 or 10 years ago, it was great. So there's so many things that we can do. The school system has a program, it's great, but we all have to put together a program that all works amongst all of us at the same time, so we're all doing the same thing.
Right.
So that's why we're all here today. So if Madam Vice President doesn't mind, let's move on with the presentation and see what framework and infrastructure we can get in place to actually form a program that encapsulates everything.
I think I said that earlier. All right. Why don't we go ahead and let Josh come up and we'll start going through this, because this, he did mention at the meeting, was the Baltimore model and how he has set up. And Josh, how long have you been doing this?
It's been right at 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So it's pretty new. And I think a lot of us have been involved in some of the events that he's had over the last couple of years. Do we need to turn down the lights so everybody see?
Can everybody hear me good? I know I don't
Do we
have a
need to-
mic, but I'm-
Why don't we give you a microphone over here? Josh, can you take William's mic and that way?
Can everybody hear me good? All right, so essentially what I put in front of you all right here is a document that was created by the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. They are one of the key resources that I utilize when it comes to, establishing initiatives and coming up with ideas and strategies to combat violence, particularly youth violence. What you see right in front of you is essentially, it tells you, it breaks down the cost of how much it is per homicide in the city, per person, and how much it costs to take care of an injury, a person injured from a shooting, right? When you looked at all those costs, these are all costs that's already published throughout the internet. They take the data and information that's published online, and they compile all of this information. So after discussion with one of the administrators over at National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, Shantae Jackson, I saw her do this in a couple of other cities. And I asked her, I said, is it possible for you to do this for the city of Mobile? And so she was able to send this information, right? If you look at that just outright, $977,000 for a homicide, that's insane. We can't afford it. So we asked the questions, what can we do? We do what works. There's models around the country that have already done this work, that have had success, that have instituted this from a collaborative standpoint, from city government to school systems to public health departments. And that's the approach that we need to take when it comes to violence prevention. This is a public health issue. It's not a police issue. It's not a government. It's a public health issue, right? And it's going to take full collaboration to address this issue. So number one, gun violence reduction strategies. These are essentially programs like Ceasefire, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, focused deterrent efforts, and essentially SCORE could be lumped into that these types of programs, right? These programs, they do something really interesting, and I think it's important that we, really grasp what they do, right? They, rather than approaching a large geographical area or a wide range or casting a wide net, they identify the individuals that are at highest risk for violent crime, that commit the crime or become a victim of crime, and they provide them intensive, hands-on, seven-touch experiences. They connect them to the necessary resources, and they plug them into programs that will help them develop from a social standpoint, but also financial, help them career-wise and education, if that's the route that they choose to go. And so that's one of the strategies I think that's extremely important, particularly like SCORE, right? They identify these individuals, they get them the services, they connect them to the services, and they do comprehensive and holistic follow-up. Hospital-based violence intervention. These programs have proven to be extremely successful around the country, particularly in places like Atlanta. Javi and Ivy Institute at, I want to say it's Grady Hospital. Is it Grady? Yes, Grady Hospital. They developed this program to where when an individual is a victim of a gunshot, they report to the trauma center within 2 hours. They call it the teachable moment, because in that moment, that person's most vulnerable and most willing to make a change because he has just been shot or she has just been shot, and they don't want to be in this position again, right? So that's the teachable moment. But within that time frame, they have individuals that are considered credible messengers report bedside, help them identify the needs that they may have, even if there's somebody in the community that's potentially going to retaliate on their behalf, and they go out and provide de-escalation tactics and mediation tactics out in the community. But not only are they in the community, they're at the bedside, making sure that that individual has support, and then also making connections to whether that's hospital social workers or community partners to ensure that that individual has the help that they need when upon departure from trauma center. So Offices of Neighborhood Safety and Advanced Peace. So Richmond, California developed their Office of Neighborhood Safety in 2007. They also founded this nonprofit called Advanced Peace. That Advanced Peace nonprofit was essentially a model of what they call their Peacekeepers Fellowship. This fellowship was essentially a more comprehensive SCORE program, right? They got these individuals and they connected them to a community of volunteers, whether that's individuals in the community, elders in the community, faith-based organizations that were willing to pour into these individuals, connecting their career industry opportunities. And it proved to be extremely successful, so much so that they replicated this program across countries, across California, New York, San Francisco, and DC, I think, was also one of them. But they teach this curriculum to municipalities that's willing to take this approach so that they can be effective, and they can also help you evaluate the programs. And then street outreach. This goes back into what we established with the community facilitators, identifying credible messengers from the community that look like the community, that can go into the community to serve the community. And these people are relevant to that community. They also have these connections to where they can make changes and provide information, but also they've established trust with the people that they serve. That's paramount, trust. So the models, when you talk about Baltimore, their population there, 557,000 people. Mayor Brandon Scott stated that after instituting their violence prevention program, they cut homicides from 327 in 2022 to 259 in 2023. He credited that historic dump to be the single year drop on record homicides for the city of Baltimore, resulted in from their comprehensive plan. When they made their plan, they established a plan to produce a 15% reduction in crime. At the time of that report, they were at 21% reduction. This plan essentially detailed all the things we talked about previously before, right? The gun violence reduction strategies, different aspects of ceasefire, advanced peace, but what was relevant to Baltimore, right? That was the first time that Baltimore has ever recorded fewer than 300 homicides since 2014. These are effective strategies and they're proven to work if implemented. Richmond, Virginia, population 226,000. They reported that they experienced a 75% decrease in youth victims of homicide from 22 to 23. Essentially using the same framework as Baltimore, but just tailored a little bit more to their specific demographic in the city. They experienced a 23% drop in juvenile victims of homicide or non-fatal shootings. What was interesting about this was that the police department there, they specifically built a gun buyback program to where they were able to successfully seize 795 guns during that time. And then that was the first time, but then the second time they were able to get 260 guns from their second buyback event. So I felt like that was really, important for them. The hiring and training of Richmond community mediators, and then they had the free gun lock program, something that they instituted from the police department as well. And I know we do provide free gun locks here for the city of Mobile, maybe scaling that to a bigger audience as well. Newark, New Jersey right now in America is probably the model for violence prevention efforts because they've reached the lowest level of violent crime in 60 years in the year 2022. They recorded 50 homicides in 2022 at the time that they reported this. That was a 15% reduction from 2021. That was the lowest since 1961. Not only that, that was in 2022, last year. They beat that number by instituting the same gun violence reduction strategies, hospital-based violence intervention, office, and this is from their Office of Violence Prevention and Safety. But what's interesting about this is 2022 was the year that they saw that first number, that low number. The office was established in July 2020. It took them a year to come out with the comprehensive plan and a couple of months to institute it, and they saw immediate results. They are now the model for what violence prevention looks like in America. So how does this look for Mobile? And I think this is where the discussion comes in play, right? We have to identify the needs of Mobile initially. So that's conducting a needs assessment in the areas most affected by violence, but then also getting the faith-based organizations involved, community leaders involved. It's important that these resources, that these efforts are driven by the community. Right. Chief Prine said something very profound on the 13th. He said the efforts should not be led by police. That's right, because if you look at every last one of these successful models, and I'm going to email y'all a document that has all the top 20 offices of violence prevention and cities that have instituted these efforts. I'm gonna email that to y'all. One of the things that y'all are going to see that they all have in common is that it's either under the mayor's office, that is under the Office of Public Safety, or the city manager's office. The efforts are driven from out of these three offices. And it's a collaborative partner of the police department. It's a collaborative partner of the institutions of higher education. It's a collaborative partner of the Office of Public Safety. So it's important that we understand that these efforts are driven just not from law enforcement, it's from everybody, right? And so not only that, one of the things that another organization, and I always like to throw the negative out there as well. Oakland, California, they established the Office of Violence Prevention and they instituted Ceasefire. Ceasefire was successful. I think they saw a 42% reduction in violent crime within the first 3 years of instituting Ceasefire. COVID hit, and just like everybody else, it exploded. The violent crime went back up. But ever since then, it has not been the same. The reason why is because before COVID, the city had dedicated about $4.5 million to that program. After COVID, they started cutting the program significantly but they were still wanting to see the same results with the same people, but they were cutting the program. And so one of the, today, I think it was yesterday, California's Community Partnerships for Safety is issued an audit of Oakland, California's Office of Violence Prevention and their ceasefire program. And they essentially came up with the idea that the reason ceasefire was not successful is because it was not receiving the same resources and funding that it was receiving before. So they were not able to be as effective as they were before. So if we're going to do this, and I'm saying this in all sincerity, if we're going to go forward with true violence prevention, let's do it. And not just do it just for the sake of doing it for a couple years or a year or two. If there is a model right now that's a predictive model that Helios is using, and they're using it for the opioid abatement. And if y'all have a chance to come out tomorrow to Innovation Portal, I really hope y'all can. But they're using it for the opioid abatement model, right? And this predictive software can predict where you will be if you instituted certain changes, right? And it's specifically about opioids. So it's saying if we could do this and put this program in, if we can come up with this medicine by this time frame, we will be better off than what we were. Their current model says that if we start instituting changes with the opioid addiction right now, by 2049, we'll be back where we were in 1996, which was not a great place. So just imagine, if we don't start instituting the necessary strategies and dedicating the necessary resources to these efforts, we are just going to be playing catch up even more, right? And so if we're saying 2049 is the point in which we'll get back to a place to where we still weren't good, we should have been doing this yesterday. So I think it's important that we can sit down and discuss things that are relative to Mobile, efforts that are relative to Mobile. We have a plethora of options and models that have proven successful, significant drops in homicides, youth violence, but it's just a matter of us dedicating the resources to do so.
Josh, since you were talking about these programs are generally under the mayor's office or public safety or city manager or something like that, but there are a number of agencies or entities that have these programs, I'm guessing. So, I mean, each of these strategies are not just something that has come out of the mayor's office. So when these different cities have funded the program, if it is like the program, which I'm looking at as one,
Yes.
how then are funds from the program filtered down to these other entities to be part of the plan to be successful? How do they determine how that works?
So some of the programs, they take allocated money from the city, for instance, city council. Each individual would dedicate a certain amount of their budget to these actions. The Office of Public Safety and the city, the police department, it was like a collaborative approach where they all put into this pot to address this issue because all the efforts, everybody was at the table when it came to the efforts as well.
So we all would go into one pot. Say that the city of Mobile puts in $2 million to the pot of money. Do all these other agencies also contribute money into the one program, or how do they decide who gets what and
so
what's the percentage?
I think that would probably be, a discussion to have with our
Later
partners,
on,
like
maybe.
the Mobile County Public School
Yeah,
System to
okay.
discuss, their expectation out of the program as well, and whether they commit funding to the program, and if they don't commit funding, they commit personnel,
Okay,
human capital, to provide us the assistance to execute the plan. And that's one of the things I think Richmond, California did with their school system, was that the school provided social workers to be able to help with the wraparound services for some of the individuals.
So I guess what we would do is once we decide kind of a direction, if it's something like this,
Right.
then we would have to get together and decide what percentages of funding needs to come to which group and how it would be handled. I'd really love to see how some of these cities handled that, the kind of funding that they were putting in and who did what. And,
And-
the successes that they had based on that, and then how it changed maybe from year to year.
Yeah, one of the documents that I'm going to send you is a full breakdown of each partner, each city, what their budget is, how they're staffed, and how they acquire that funding as well.
Before we go on, you need to turn on your microphone as well, so we can get this. Is it on?
You got the green one.
Yeah, needs to be green.
Okay, this one.
Okay.
All right.
William, go ahead. Or CJ, I don't know who was, yeah.
Appreciate the presentation. I have several questions. The first question is going back to Commander Graves. You said that we have to make the parents more accountable. My question is to you, what suggestions, because the only thing I can think of is on the state level, and how do you make parents more accountable?
I'll use one example that I have researched, and I say this hesitantly because what I do know is not enough, but I do know that there are some states in the country that are coming up with strategies to address situations where parents are not being accountable with their youth. For example, SNAP entitlements. Okay, we kind of frown when we hear that, but if you have a person, if you have a child who is incarcerated for a violent crime and he's incarcerated or she's incarcerated, oftentimes those agencies are not communicating. What they've done is make sure that there are communicating agencies that can leverage their existing resources and, for example, say that person is no longer in the home. He's no longer in the home. The state is currently feeding him or her. Then the entitlements for that particular child, the parent no longer receives, because oftentimes the parent is still receiving those benefits even when the child's incarcerated. That's just one example, and some people may frown on that. And I think that these are tough times, and we have to figure out ways of truly saying, what do we do? And that may not be a viable solution here. But what I'm saying is that we have to look at what is out there. What are cities doing? What are states doing to come up with strategies to make parents more accountable? I just feel like, the best strategy absent of the parent is oftentimes not as successful as it would be if the parent was engaged or is engaged. That's one reason why the SCORE program has been successful with the participants that have graduated through the program, because these men and women that we put through this program, at one count, we were talking about, I think our first group, and Chief of Staff Barber, if you correct me, I think 60 kids among the first 9 or 12 people. What was the number? Okay, I'm 30-something kids. But the reality is that those kids are kids that are impacted by their parent in one way or the other. If that parent is successful in completing the program, like the ones that we had complete the program, those kids benefit from that. They benefit from that parent now being engaged, that parent now having a job, that parent now having a driver's license, because now when that person was in the program, they didn't have one, but now they have one, and now that opened the door for them to find employment. I've seen grown men cry because they had the driver's license. And I've seen men understand that when you sit down and you sit at a table like this and you're talking about real life issues, that they want to talk about issues that will help them actually figure out how to navigate this society or this world that we live in. And when I say 73.7% success, that means that those children who are children of those parents, they're successful too, God willing, because that parent is now engaged. And I think that when we look at the parental piece, understanding how do we come up with strategies to make that person or that parent accountable, we have to truly look at that being a huge part in moving forward. Because we can come to the table all day and we can talk about these problems, but when will we get a parent who who is contributing to the problem by not being accountable with their child to the table.
So my question is that, I mean, have your department or is anyone out there approach these state legislators and say, hey, this is the issues that we're having, that parents are not being accountable. Let's, meet at this table and see how can we make parents more accountable. Have anybody done it?
I'm in preparation of doing that now. I know that there are some legislators that are looking at trying to make parents accountable. I would love to sit with some and just explore what strategies are being done right now in different cities or different states in our country, because they want. I can tell you that we've had legislators help us before when we established the mandatory reporting of gunshot wound legislation here in Alabama. We were one of 2 states in the entire country that did not require hospitals to report when someone came in with a gunshot wound. Wyoming and one other state, and then Guam territory, did not have a law. We were among those. Mississippi had a law, and I jokingly say sometimes Mississippi was ahead of us. But we got that passed through help from Adeline Clark. She was instrumental in helping me draft some verbiage. She took it and they got it passed. And now, because of our efforts here locally, the state of Alabama now has something in place where someone comes in with a gunshot wound in a hospital, that they're not just patched up and they go back out with the possibility of creating more harm.
Yeah, but I would do my part and I would contact, but I really believe that, it'd be more effective too, that we have some people in key positions like you and others to go and approach the state legislators and say, hey, this is a big problem. We can cut down the crime by this much percentage if we go ahead and try to act on this and that, because just constantly just coming to the table and just talking about it. I mean, God forbid it, but I don't want another 15, 8-year-old, 9-year-old be killed next week talking about we're coming to the table. We should have been doing this like yesterday. And I say we. Second thing is that, I'm a person that don't want to throw good money behind bad things and stuff that just ain't working. And I was hearing, Jones was talking about, the money and, in situations like that. And again, I don't have no issues, approving money, but I have issues throwing money behind bad things. Councilman Dave had mentioned something a couple weeks ago about PSAs. And I'm gonna give you an example of how I feel about bad money, good money being thrown behind bad stuff. And I thought about what Councilman Days had said about doing a PSA about locking up your guns. There's a segment that you do, or you have done rather, on the news. And, I see the segment like at 10:30 at night, 1:30 in the morning, 8:30 on the news. But the people that actually needs to see those segments, they're not watching no TV at 10:30 at night or 1:30 in the morning, and it's 8:30 on the news. I mean, who those PSAs are for? And to me, that's a example of throwing maybe some good money behind something that's not really being profitable. When I say profitable, nobody's not really benefiting that, because the people that are watching the news at 8:30 in the morning, they're not the ones that go around here banging, or the ones that's watching the news at 10:30, they're not really the ones that go around here banging. But I really believe that, like, doing a PSA, like, for saying, hey, lock your car doors up, lock your trucks up at night, take your guns out your car. If not, this is what potentially can happen. A 15-year-old in the hospital, an 8-year-old paralyzed, or 9-year-old dead. Those are PSAs that need to go out at 10:30 at night to remind somebody, hey, let me go and get my gun out the car, or let me go and lock up my car door at 1:30 in the morning, or either 8:30 in the morning. Those are PSAs that need to go out at those particular times. So my question is, how much money is really being spent on like those public service announcements, and how much your department is like based upon? Because again, the PSAs like lock up your car doors, this can happen if you don't lock your car door up, or this can happen if you don't take the gun out your car. Those need to be played at 10:30 at night, or 1:30 in the morning, or 8:30 in the morning. But something about, the ones that you got going on, that need to be, done during prime hours where teenagers are pretty much watching it, you know?
So when it comes to that, Charlotte, correct me if I'm wrong. Fox 10 and NBC 15, they play those commercials kind of as in just we're not paying them for that.
If I might
Yeah.
help a little bit with this,
Uh-huh.
and I see some of my media friends back here, including Carol Hunter, who can weigh in on it. PSAs are generally just that.
Mhm.
You're not paying for them, so you're getting whenever there's an available time slot to stick them in. So you get what you get.
Right.
If you want something in a specific time period that has a specific message and you want to run it weekly, you're going to be paying a whole lot more for it. That's more of a commercial, which can be done. It's just a matter of funding.
So a lot of, and truly a lot of the efforts that we have, put forth over the last 2 years, we've leveraged relationships like Fox 10 and NBC 15. People have donated, we've come out our pockets for stuff. And so it's really been efforts in which we've really allowed the community to pour into these efforts and just to show that they've really galvanized the efforts as well.
Vice President.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You- All right, I think too, what President Small was also stating is that, like, by having those PSAs and we knowing that they're going to be shown at different times on the news, then it probably would have been best having a video
That's effective. Yeah.
promoting lock your cars, up, because it's going to people who are older who watching the news. But I think the reason why it's so important to have that comprehensive plan, what you were just talking about, because to me that would have been a discussion, everybody working together, knowing that these type of things are taking place. And I think too, by having that comprehensive plan that I've been saying for a long time, what creates is that everything might not come with money. Going back to what you were saying, is relationships,
Yeah.
it's stuff people are already doing, but how is it working together though? How you create that synergy? My question is, do you have a budget? Like, is it a budget for the prevention to?
We are currently receiving monies through ARPA funds.
Through ARPA.
Yes.
So it's a budget for that amount through ARPA?
Well, we received dollars for prevention strategies when that funding came out. So that's the funding we currently have. We're under Gulf Coast Technology Center, so there's a budget there as well. But to answer your question, money for prevention intervention, we can always use more money for that.
So what's the current budget right now?
I don't have that number.
Can we get a?
It's difficult to extract it. We'd have to do it because the whole cost center is Gulf Coast Tech Center, and all of these are components of it.
When y'all get an opportunity, can you send that to the council? I'm sure all my colleagues would like to see that as well.
I think maybe just the combined pots of money that you've got, whether it's ARPA or somewhere else, just how much of a total are we looking at going into these two programs in particular that we're talking about? I know, Josh and Curtis are both Mobile police officers or with the Mobile Police Department. So your salaries are still paid through the city that way, correct? But the programs that y'all are doing, if we can get a combined total amount of money so that we just have a better idea of what's, what you're using right now and what you're trying to do. I mean, part of me feels like y'all are just constantly swimming upstream and, you're like the salmon trying to go upstream and everything's coming against you. So we need to know what you're looking at and what you're able to do with the money that you have now as we go forward and put this plan together to see what we can do better.
Vice President
Yeah.
Gregory, as
Yeah,
well. I
sorry.
don't think Joshua Jones' salary is in the budget because I believe we approved the grant when he came on. So I believe that
Okay.
is, matter of
Okay.
fact, is coming to the end. Is it a timeline for that?
Uh,
I think it's at the end of the year, we'll
Yeah.
have to reevaluate it.
Okay,
It's
so-
actually paid through the city, we're reimbursed with the grant.
He's
Right.
correct. Okay.
Okay.
But you were with police department before that, yes?
Yes, ma'am, I
Okay.
was.
All right, Joel.
I think that if you, would you like to go ahead and go?
Go ahead, I'll wait.
No, I didn't.
I'll wait. I don't want to
missed.
get
I was-
gavelled out. Go
I think that the consensus seems to be that we are going to want to try some things that we haven't done before. And I think if we're going to do that, then we're going to have a written, some kind of document, a document identifying what of these various initiatives we talked about we're going to do, who's going to be responsible for it, where the money's going to come from. I like the idea of it not being in the police department. It needs to be some other department of the city. I think there needs to be a director and a staff around it, and that's got to be funded too. I think that if we're going to do this, if we're going to get serious about it, we're going to have to put serious money behind it. And we're going to have targets for what we want to see the plan accomplish. And we're going to have a timeline. I don't think we're going to be able to put, whatever it is, $2 million into this in a fiscal year and expect immediate results. We're going to have to put $2 million in it in year 1, to year 2, year 3, and maybe after the end of year 3, we look at it and see what it's done and tweak it or try something else. But as the data shows, we're spending a lot of money on this problem right now. We might as well try to spend some significant sums in trying to fix it, but it's going to require an organized plan that we all understand, that's written, that's properly staffed and properly measured as we go forward.
William?
Well, thank you. Joe just checked off questions 2 and 3, which I agree with. The other thing is that you mentioned, the president mentioned the legislature. Linda, there's probably no need for us, if we wanted to write this plan, to have state approval, correct? Michael Linder.
I wouldn't think so.
For this plan to work, we do not need state legislature approval, do we? So we could write it on our own. Okay. Okay. Secondly, who would be responsible for writing the plan? Would it be the council attorney or would it be the city's attorney in the mayor's office? We're
Well,
talking about
whatever
plan we come up with.
I think it needs to be a combination effort
All right.
between mayor and council for sure, public safety.
What about the school system?
Well, I think they need to be a part of it. They are a partner.
They're our partner. All right. The other question is that when everybody's in the room and this program works, then everybody's under the same direction, as Joe said. So that means whatever funding goes in, there would be no need to send additional funding to separate agencies because the program would be running from within our departments. Is that not correct? Lansky, is that the way you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so that answers that question. So we will be at the forefront with all the partners there, and monies would be delegated from the program itself. So that takes, that's right, that take care of the oversight. So lastly, how long would it take to write the program? That's the next question. How long will it take?
I don't think there's a clear answer to say how long it would take, because what you need consultation from, you need to consult other agencies. You have to get with them and see how they run their programs, the successes, the failures, all of that. So I think.
Are you talking about other agencies like Newark, New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Since my appointment, and we've actually started reorganizing the Gulf Coast Technology Center in Josh and Curtis's group to bring it under the Office of Public Safety and have a more holistic view of what's being done. One of the things is to address the prevention and mitigation models that both Josh and Curtis spoke to. Eventually, we were going to try to separate out the budget, bring it all under the Office of Public Safety. So we do have a one point of contact with respect to mitigation and prevention. So some of the stuff that you're talking about has been in the works for a couple of weeks now already. And with respect to, I was helping Corey out with getting the peace plan We are looking at the different models, the different understanding of groups, and how best to use our dollar for dollar as what we move forward. Any additional monies from the council would be great. We are going to look at additional grants, but I agree with the Public Safety Committee and Mr. Penn and CJ and William that we do need to come up with a plan. But as you saw from Josh's model, it's not just one program. It's multiple programs stacked on each other with cooperation from the Mobile County Public Schools, from the faith-based communities. We have to then choose which ones are best for the city of Mobile and implement them accordingly in a smart and efficient fashion.
Director Lansky, let me help you. The reason why I asked about a timeline is because of financing. We all know that the city budget passes every year September 30th. The reason why everybody else is asking where different monies is coming from different parts of the budget is so that we can have a separate line item in the budget so we know what we're dealing with. Reason why we're asking you about how much is so that we can have this ready before August 30th this year. We're going to move on this.
We need
Yeah,
to, we need,
so
we need to
we gotta have it.
We need to have the comprehensive plan completed that has these various component parts, but a comprehensive plan completed by the May, June timeframe.
Or sooner.
Yeah, preferably sooner, so that we know how much that comprehensive plan is going to cost, at least in the first fiscal year, so it can be properly included in the budget.
I can assure you that any plan that is derived and come up with will be complete, have a general understanding well before the next budget cycle, so it can be fully funded.
And Josh, also, is in the next month or two, between the president, the school board, now all the other partners and the lawyers, it'd be nice if we could get these legal minds to convene and put together the framework and statute of how this is going to work. Because if it's going to run out of the administration, then we need to know how all the partners are playing, what all the sections are going to do, how it's going to interact with the administration and the council, so that we can make sure that it is all right. So that the sooner the better. I'm not saying 2 or 3 months. I would like to see it in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if you can get it together. Yeah, it may not be realistic, 30 days, but I'd like to see it as quickly as possible. Or at least an outline. So if there's anything that I can do to help you push it along, I'd like to do it, but as quickly as possible. So this council, who I see everybody's itching at the bit to do it, so we can quickly move forward and make sure we have our pieces in the right places.
I can say this, collaboration is key to everything. 2 primary partners in this endeavor is public health and education, who are already at the table with us. I think when you look at a plan, you have to look at what resources do you currently have. But I think that starts with bringing key stakeholders to the table and discussing with them what we're trying to do collectively, because it will take more than just us to do this.
Explain.
Well, this is a public health approach to what we're talking about. We're talking about a public health approach to mitigation of gun violence, because gun violence is a public health problem. So you have to have public health partners at the table with you, along with educators, talking about what they do. I think our public health department here has a plethora of services that they currently do in our community that a lot of people are completely oblivious to. I think when you look at what they do, then it helps you figure out what you need to do and how you actually try to identify a comprehensive approach to mitigation.
Okay. No, I can agree with that.
Are we looking at these partners as also being people who contribute more? Because we're going to be looked at as contributing more toward this. And if they are our partners in these other cities, are these other partners contributing more funding toward this effort?
I think the biggest thing is getting them to the table and identifying what's currently being done. What can we now leverage that will benefit this mitigation?
I think I want to say, Director Lasky, at the Peace Forum, we already said that another meeting was coming forward. So a lot of the stuff that we were discussing, it was already in the process, and we already brought a lot of people to the table. I think right now with all the colleagues and what I'm hearing, I think we need to move forward now. I think, of course, everybody's on the same page, and then we can go on and plan for the next meeting so we can start working on this plan.
And can I add something too? Obviously, that everybody there's a lot of programs. I mean, I could tell you about 15 programs that Housing First has executing. I can tell you. I mean, I can't even dive into it all to point. I mean, there's so much stuff. I think kind of, on Councilmember Dave's and Councilmember Carroll's point on the list there, somebody's got to drive the ship here. I know that you're doing some reshuffling and everything. And is there a way, currently sitting here January, what is today? January 23rd. Is there a way that maybe somebody on the public safety, so seeing as, like Joshua said, this kind of needs to be driven by, somebody outside of police. Is there human assets, one or two, that we can or that you can kind of bring them in and say, okay, this is what you need to, I want you to work on this. And then before I'll let you answer, Josh, as far as these stats that you gave us, are those case studies that maybe the human assets could look at and review and say, bring it up to the director. We feel this is the best way to move forward with. So.
Those are actual programs that are going on right now. Those stats came directly from the reports of those offices.
We should, my opinion would be, we should stick to strategies that have been proven in other cities rather than experimenting ourselves at this particular point.
I agree. Go ahead.
Vice President.
Yes, sir.
One, after I say this statement, I would like to hear from Director Gatewood. He came.
And you've been listening.
And you've been listening. And so if anything that you want to add to it, but I do believe that if we could get someone to help move this along, it seems like, Joshua Jones has been one of the people who've been working with this, looking at this Baltimore project to help assist, making sure that connecting with everyone to work with this, getting this plan together, that would be great. I think we need someone that could stay focused on. I know your table, you got a lot of stuff on your hand, and I know the same thing with Commander Graves. If we could get somebody to kind of be focused on that, so we can start moving that ball. And Director Gatewood, can you anything that you would like to share?
Hold on a second before you go. Is the I'm on board with Corey on this. I think we have to have a point person to push it. Josh has shown an extreme amount of knowledge and background of what's happening out there. Director Lansky, if you could ask the administration to appoint him as head of this, and let's move forward as quickly as we can. I mean, I think the council's showing a lot of support and faith in what Josh has shown us today. And if you guys could put him there and let's move it and let's do it and let him organize everybody and get going. No, he's not. He's under a grant. That's why I'm asking, because we have to make the request.
Let me answer. So, like I said, we recently did some shuffling, and both Josh and Curtis and their groups will answer to me going forward. We're looking to again shift cost centers over the next budget cycle. COS Barber has gone upstairs. We've already come. We had a long discussion yesterday about how we're going to structure this. And to answer your question, Councilman Woods, the people that will be writing this, undertaking this, are you see them at the table. It's going to be Josh and Curtis, because there's so many facets to leave one person in charge of everything. Because the mental health piece, there's the prevention piece, there's mitigation piece, there's the youth violence piece. It's really going to have to be a team effort with respect to writing and getting this done, but it's something that we've committed to already, and okay, Jim, but we do have a design structure where both Josh and Curtis have their own responsibilities and their own inputs with respect to coming up with the continuity plan that'll cover the entire spectrum.
One last question.
think what he was trying to get to is there really has to be that point person, whether, I mean, you're the overall guy, but if there's one point person who is making sure that everything's getting done and all the information is getting cleared and all the partners are being talked to and all the planning's being done, that may be somebody on your staff, and maybe that's Josh, maybe it's somebody else. But, you know, there are a lot of moving parts and pieces, you know, with this. So whatever you think is best, of course, but you know, Josh has been riding herd on it. I think he just needs some help, you know, some staff.
One last question I didn't ask about the budget. When you submit it to us, submit it with ARPA, and so would it submit it without ARPA? It will retire in 26. So we'll be a year into this and we'll be subject to loss of those fundings. So submit it with and without, so we'll know what we're looking at. Sorry.
Anybody
Director.
else? Yeah. And Mr. Gatewood.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. I appreciate the invitation. And I promise I won't say much. I know everybody has places to be, but I assure you that, you know, on behalf of the superintendent, who is very interested in the programs that are will be developed and utilized throughout the city, because as I said on the 13th, you know, we're a microcosm of the city of Mobile. 54, I believe, of the 90 campuses in our school system are in either the city of Mobile or police jurisdiction. So we are quite interested in coming up with plans. You know, we've spent lots of money and I hate to say fortifying our campuses, but doing things that make our kids safe every day. However, you know, law statistics says eventually our you know, we're going to have to deal with a situation that comes directly from the community onto our campus. So the more that we can do to affect the lives of the students, certainly while they're on our campus 8 hours a day, but the other 16 hours while they're at home or whatever the case is, or to prevent some of these things, if it's reaching out to their families and having them, you know, get on board with what we're doing, we're all in. Absolutely. You know, as Curtis, I think, and Josh will tell you, we worked together for years, kind of behind the scenes. But like I said before, the things that we're doing, instead of all these different agencies operating in silos, we've got to come together. And I think that's what this is about. Again, you have our superintendent is so interested in it. We came out on a cold Saturday afternoon you know, and he's the best. I mean, he's tops. He's very interested in this. Our board, our leadership, this is very important to us because selfishly, we want our campuses to operate as safely. We tell our parents that, you know, our campuses are the safest place to be from 7 to 3. That's a little jingle that our communications department came up with. And I plan to not just let that be a slogan, but let that be the absolute truth. So anything that we can do to help, we're already here. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I do appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else?
One last thing, and this is just Zogby stuff as we move forward. The council fully understands that we cannot create an administrative department before we move forward while we're in this committee meeting. That's why it's been a constant request that the administration move forward with the creation of the department and give us the information that we need to do to set the ordinance in order to fund it and move it. This would almost be a new department within the city, almost, it sounds like. So I just want to make that clear. We are not trying to create an administrative department here. We're just trying to get a a policy in place for you guys to create a procedure to make it happen. All right.
Real careful wording there, Mr. Carroll. Just a couple of quick comments. One of them, when we first started looking at this problem, you really want to tailor your programs and really go at those that really, really need it. I say that to say most of our kids are not a problem. But when I started looking at this as police chief and working with Curtis and Andy Gatewood, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong because my memory's getting old, from grades 1 through 12, 66% of our suspensions and our arrests were ninth graders. And so when we really started to drill down into that, we began to develop programs. Director Lasky was the agent in charge of FBI Mobile, like Bridging the Gap, to bring those at-risk youth in contact with law enforcement to understand how to engage law enforcement. The other one, as we talk about social controls, and I listen to Curtis, The very first, most effective social control you have is the family unit. The parents are the very first, and that's why we're talking about accountability. The second is the education institution, because they have your outside of the family, they have the children, the post, and they're not just teaching math and science. They're saying, stand in line, keep your hands to yourself. They're teaching social norms. The third is the community itself. As we rebuild our neighborhoods, the missing demographic element is that working class guy in a lot of my toughest neighborhoods. That's the guy that knew the kids in his neighborhoods. He knew which ones were trouble, which weren't, and he would snatch them up and correct them and take them home. He's not there anymore. He's also the guy that cut Widow Jones's yard on the weekend. So rebuilding our neighborhoods and our community, because our school system is a reflection of our community. And we've got to understand that. The other one is we've taken faith out of every one of those elements, and we've got to find a way to get back there. The police department is a social control, but it was designed to be the last social control, the very ultimate last stop for somebody. Unfortunately, in a lot of these children, it is the very first social control that they run into. So I wanted to make those observations as I listened to y'all work through this. We're not creating a department. We're just restructuring a lot of what the assets already exist. You just want to see it in a separate budget. So we're moving the cost center. That decision was already made. And we'll be glad to show it to you. But we're excited that y'all are willing to put the city's money behind these programs because they're very effective, but they're very small compared to the needs within the community.
Well, I think the fact that they are very effective, and you just said that, but they're very small, I think if we are willing to put the kind of funding behind them, behind these programs.
We'd have more capacity.
And more manpower.
That's right.
Then we will have greater capacity to do what needs to be done. Now, challenge for all of us come budget time is if we're putting that kind of funding behind these specific programs, there are a lot of other agencies out there who are going to come to us and say, well, we do that and we do that and we do that. Where's our funding? So that's going to be a very difficult decision for all of us during the budget.
I don't think so. I think this is our initiative.
Well, I'm just saying, get ready for people to come to us and want to know where their money is.
I would just like to, if I could, and
Go
I've
ahead.
already mentioned this to Councilwoman Gregory, going back to your statement about the importance of ninth grade. When I served on the board of the Mobile Area Education Foundation, it was absolutely clear that ninth grade was critical. Ninth grade was critical. If you could get them, it's boys, if you could get the boys through the ninth grade and keep them in there till they graduated, the chances of them doing stuff really bad is greatly diminished. Now, I have the advantage of having been a 14-year-old boy before. And and so I know something about it. And all I can do is tell you that even I had some disciplinary problems in ninth grade, but if we can keep them in there, if we could find a way to keep them in there till they graduate, that's one tactic to really help us meet this problem.
That's one tactic. You have parents.
That's right. No, that's right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But we're going to need the help from the state.
Well, let me, again, to comment on the parenting, the New Year's Eve shooting, that young man was on conditional release, had to be home at 7:00, and he's out downtown Mobile with a gun, which ended up in a homicide, and his parents were aware he's not in the house. But that's the kind of accountability we're talking. We're not talking about a kid does something unforeseeable, but you know the child is in need of very close supervision, and you allow them to go out that door. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
All right, anybody else? Next steps, I think we need to talk about next steps.
Yeah, that's
CJ.
what I'm about to ask Vice President. Can we convene in 30 days to see exactly where we at?
I think that would be good if we can get an outline of the direction that you're looking at, maybe some more detailed information. Also from the other partners that were at our peace forum, because the Alta Point came up, the trauma center program. What else? I'm forgetting something, but anyway, some of the other partners and and Rob, I know y'all have got that. We might want to hear from some of them as to what their role could be in this.
Absolutely. Just, the ones that were at the Peace Forum are currently all our partners. My thing is, I would suggest one of the big things that, and I'll say that Josh has pushed, we have the, you should hear from the trauma surgeon, because we have the disruptors. The hospital initiative that Josh spoke about earlier is a tremendous thing. I think that would be something beneficial for you guys to hear, and allow Josh to discuss what the hospital initiative would be and would entail.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So 30 days, we want to come back, Public Safety Committee meeting, and see where we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
What the plan is starting to shape.
Yeah, that would be great. All right, anybody else? All right, we are adjourned.